Now let's start with what is known. Palantir Technologies is a US based analytics firm whose core business is helping governments and large institutions integrate, manage, and analyze massive amounts of data for operational decision making in high stakes environments. In January 2024, Palantir publicly announced a strategic partnership with the Israeli Ministry of Defense, agreeing to supply its technology to assist Israel during an active war. The company described the work as vital and ongoing and later disclosed the partnership in its SEC filings. Specific operational details were not made public. That alone should give Americans pause. Because the question is not whether Israel has the right to defend itself. Obviously, they do. Obviously, every sovereign nation in the world has a right to defend itself. The question is what happens to American national security when a private U.S. defense tech firm becomes operationally embedded in a foreign military during wartime. That question forces us to deal with structure instead of sentiment. This is not about intentions. It is not about loyalty. It is not about choosing sides. It's about architecture. Palantir does not manufacture weapons in the traditional sense. It provides systems that integrate intelligence, identify patterns, prioritize targets, and inform action. In modern warfare, those systems do not sit at the margins, they sit at the center of the war. When a private American firm becomes embedded in a foreign military's operational workflow, the relationship stops being symbolic. It becomes functional. And functional relationships carry consequences. First, there's strategic entanglement without public consent. Wars are supposed to move through public institutions. Congress debates, votes are taken, authorizations are issued. Even when that process is imperfect, it exists. Private defense tech partnerships bypass it. No public hearing, no vote, no democratic mandate. A decision with geopolitical consequences is framed as a technical necessity and executed as a business agreement. The public encounters it only after it is already in motion. Second, there's dependency. Advanced analytics platforms are not interchangeable tools. They require deep integration, constant updates, and institutional reliance. Once embedded, replacing them is slow, expensive, and destabilizing. Influence does not require ownership. It requires indispensability. And indispensability inside military and intelligence systems is a national security concern, regardless of the ally involved. Third, there's intelligence exposure that does not require wrongdoing. When a single firm supports multiple defense clients across borders, it accumulates system-level knowledge, not cinematic secrets, patterns, methods, assumptions, ways of seeing. Risk does not require malice. It only requires concentration. Fourth, there's blowback. When American companies become visibly tied to active conflicts, they become targets. Politically, economically, digitally, infrastructure attracts attention. Platforms attract pressure. Systems attract probing. Those risks do not stay overseas, they travel home. And this is where the danger becomes concrete. Modern data analytics platforms are built to identify patterns at scale. They ingest massive volumes of information, communications, metadata, location data, social networks, transactional records, behavioral signals, and surface relationships invisible to human analysts alone. In counterterrorism contexts, these systems are used to assist in identifying threats, mapping networks, and prioritizing targets. But pattern recognition is not moral reasoning. It is correlation. And correlation does not understand intent, coercion, error, or innocence. A system can flag an individual because of proximity to a suspect, shared geography, communication overlap, family association, or statistical anomaly. None of those are crimes. They are signals. The danger begins when signals start functioning as judgments. In dense surveilled environments, especially war zones, data becomes noisy. Context collapses and pressure to act intensifies. Systems designed to surface risk can slide into assigning guilt, not because anyone intends it, but because speed rewards certainty. When a system flags someone as a potential terrorist, what follows matters. If that designation triggers detention, targeting, surveillance escalation, restricted movement, or loss of due process, the system has crossed from analysis into consequence. At that point, the question is no longer technical, it is moral. An innocent person does not need to be misidentified often for the damage to be severe. They need to be misidentified once. And in conflicts where civilians live inside the same social, geographic, and familial networks as militants, misclassification is not rare, it is structural. A system cannot distinguish belief from proximity, choice from coercion, or guilt from association. Those distinctions require human judgment, human restraint, human accountability. When systems optimized for efficiency operate where life and death decisions depend on nuance, errors do not remain abstract. They land on bodies. And every civilian harmed by misidentification becomes more than a tragedy. It becomes a strategic liability. It fuels resentment. It erodes legitimacy. It extends conflict rather than containing it. It creates terrorist organizations like ISIS, like Hamas. There's another layer Americans should not ignore. Palantir is not an abstract machine. It is built, guided, and philosophically shaped by people. One of its most influential figures, Peter Thiel, has spoken openly about apocalyptic themes, about the Antichrist, about the failures of mass democracy, and about the belief that history is not driven by ordinary hardworking people, but by exceptional establishment elite individuals operating above them. Those views are public. A person skeptical of democratic participation will not instinctively design systems that strengthen democratic oversight. A person who views history as the domain of elites will not naturally build tools that empower the working class. A person comfortable with concentrated power will not fear centralized authority the way free societies must. When nations lean on private platforms shaped by philosophies openly skeptical of popular accountability, erosion should not surprise anyone. Christians of all people should recognize the pattern. Scripture does not warn first about weapons or armies. Scripture warns first about powers and principalities, about systems that promise order and security while quietly demanding trust without submission to truth. The danger is not one company, and it is not one man. The danger is a security architecture built on private systems unmoored from democratic consent, moral restraint, and public accountability. When judgment is automated, authority centralized, and responsibility diffused, innocence does not vanish in a protest. It vanishes without a sound. A society that trades moral discernment for efficiency does not become safer. It becomes easier to manage. And history has already told us where that ends.